Alaskans love rust-free cars from the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, which I never even really knew until we rallied the competition in 2020. And we're like, how are you getting home? Oh, we're flying home. What are you doing with your car? Oh, we sold it. What? So, cracked windshield and all? Yep.
Well, yeah, because it's Alaska. I mean...
Yeah, right.
I don't think you can even register a car without a cracked windshield in Alaska.
Right.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Horsepower Heritage. I'm Maurice Merrick, and greetings to all of you listening from places like Twinsburg, Ohio, Meridian, Idaho, Culver City, California, Calgary, Alberta, Canada, Manila in the Philippines, and Osaka, Japan. Thanks for joining me for another dive into the car culture. And if you heard the last episode, you know I was traveling last week. I was in Newport, Rhode Island over the weekend. Saturday, it was the Bonhams 2 Generations auction, which was a great collection of mostly pre-1920 automobiles. And then on Sunday, I hitched a ride for the Audrain Automobile Museum's second annual Veteran Car Tour. I rode in a 1907 Panhard and Levasseur touring car, a huge car, and it was an absolute blast. Every car on the tour was pre-1908, and I think I counted 15 cars altogether. There were a couple of curved dash Oldsmobiles, 2 Panhards, one big, one small, a white Roadster, a Stanley Steamer, a Renault, a Winton, a Ford Model S, and a Thomas Flyer owned by Evan Ide of Bonhams, who was my guest on the episode I did on the 2 Generations auction preview, if you heard that one. So it was a foggy, drizzly day, but seeing all these machines underway through the spectacular scenery of Newport was just incredible. And I want to thank my friend Andy Oldman for letting me tag along in his car. We had a few little mechanical problems with his Panhard because it was actually the shakedown run for the car. So I ended up turning some wrenches in the rain, but it was all part of the fun. And also thanks to Steve Haas at the Audrain, Nick Schorsch, and of course, Donald Osborne, who's a great ambassador for the Audrain and for Newport. By the way, you can see a few clips of the tour on the Horsepower Heritage Instagram page. Just magnificent cars, and it was really fun. So anyway, with travel to and from the East Coast and a tight schedule this last week, I wasn't sure I was going to be ready with another episode for you, but I can't leave you hanging. So today's episode will take you into the weekend. And if you enjoy Horsepower Heritage, be sure to share the show with your friends. Leave me 5 stars and a quick review. And if you're not following, click that follow button. Make sure you don't miss any episodes. All right, today my guests are Andy and Mercedes Lilienthal, who are returning to the show, and I had them on last year to talk about their adventures on the ALCAN Rally, if you remember. So Andy is part of the team at Warren Industries, which manufactures awesome winches and other off-road equipment, and Mercedes is an automotive journalist whose work has appeared in many publications, including the New York Times. You've probably read some of her stuff. And just as kind of an intro to our discussion today, maybe you've seen in the news recently that Jaguar Land Rover is essentially dropping the Land Rover name, or at least they're shuffling the deck when it comes to their branding. Honestly, I don't really know what they're doing, and I'm not sure that they do either. But the reason I mention it is that one of the things we're going to be talking about today is the new INEOS Grenadier, which looks like it's going to be a worthy successor to the legacy Land Rover Defender, the body-on-frame that basically took the company through its first 70 years of existence. And we also talked about King of the Hammers, which is a gonzo off-road event here in California, as well as winching and all sorts of other stuff. So this episode is all about off-roading, which is something I love to do, and I hope you'll enjoy it. And when we come back, it's Andy and Mercedes Lilienthal, right here on Horsepower Heritage. Hi guys, Maurice Merrick here, and I want to give you a few things to check out at modelcitizendiecast.com. First, there's the Jaguar E-Type Lightweight from 1963. That's in 1/18 scale by Auto Art. Or how about a 1956 Alfa Romeo Giulietta Sprint, also in 1/18 scale. Or if you're into Japanese supercars, there's the Nissan Skyline GTR V-Spec in 1/18 scale. You can find these and many more scale model cars at modelcitizendiecast.com. Enter promo code HERITAGE at checkout for 10% off your order. That's a special deal for my listeners. From race cars to street cars and everything in between, it's ModelCitizenDiecast.com, because your inner child still wants to play with cars.
Andy and Mercedes Lilienthal, you guys make a great team. Thanks for coming on the show again. And it's been a year now.
It's been a while,
Wow.
for sure.
God, it feels like that's crazy. Yeah.
Wow.
Mercedes, I know you just got back from Scotland. You were checking out the production version of the INEOS Grenadier. I know you wrote an article for Tread magazine on that.
Yes.
I read the article. Sounds really cool, but I want to hear your thoughts. And Andy, I know you've been busy too with stuff. What's cool about you guys is you're great overlanding fans. You're down for getting out in the boonies and doing cool stuff. So it's always fun to talk to you.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we love being on the show. We've been very, very busy. So depending on if it's Andy with King of the Hammers or us with the ALCAN 5000 Rally in Subaru or me with Chicago Auto Show or the Chevy launch
I was
or
on the four-wheeler overland adventure this year.
or me and INEOS. I mean,
Yeah, lots of things.
we've got lots to talk about.
Andy, you were at King of the Hammers this year.
I was. I always tell people, if you're into four-wheel drive, you should go to King of the Hammers at least once. It's absolutely incredible. They used to say, oh, it's like the Burning Man of off-road, but I think it's more like the Mad Max of off-road. Maybe a little less violence, but it's incredible.
Good analogy.
It's an event that goes from literally nothing in the desert to 30,000 plus people.
Oh, probably more than that.
Well, nowadays, it's probably more like 50 to 60,000 people. When I was there for the media briefing, because I'm there with Warren Industries, but I also register as media to get photos. And they said with 3 days left, they were still expecting 3,000 RVs to come in. So, I mean, it's incredible. It is absolutely insane. Amazing four-wheel drives, amazing trails, great racing, all kinds of stuff.
Well, this is literally in the middle of the desert in Johnson Valley in California. So there's this huge lake bed, and that whole area is literally called Hammertown. So
it goes from nothing to Hammertown.
to Hammertown, yeah.
And we should explain the reason it's Hammertown is because they're basically scrambling over these gnarly rock formations.
Yes, and all of the trails out there, or a lot of the trails, are named after different kinds of hammers. So the whole thing stemmed from a group of friends that were out there, and they decided one year to see who could basically do these trails the fastest, and it grew from literally a few people doing this to an actual, massively huge race. This year they had, if you include all the classes, and that includes motorcycle class, they had a motorcycle race, they had a desert Baja kind of stuff, everything from like the little Volkswagen Beetles to full-on trophy truck style vehicles, UTVs, and the various classes of Ultra 4 cars. They had 1,000 registered racers this year. So it's a big deal now. It's turned into a real big thing.
Yeah, and what's cool too is a lot of guys will purpose build a rig for King of the Hammers.
Absolutely. Yeah, you get these wild buggies that have massive power, and they're designed to do, it's interesting because they're very specialized, but at the same time they have to be a bit of a jack of all trades, because they've got to be able to crawl over massive rocks, and then they also have to do 100 plus miles an hour across the lake bed. So you can't build something that's specifically like a Baja truck, and you can't build something that's just a rock crawler. You have to build something that does a little bit of both. But there's also like the Everyman Challenge, which is the day before the big race. And that's going to be a little bit different vehicle. There were 6 Suzuki Samurais out there, and they're only doing about 50 miles an hour, like Amber Turner in her Suzuki. And
I was just going to say, or the Every Woman Challenge.
Right. But
there are women that do it too.
Absolutely. And so you get a little bit of everything, and it's a spectacle, to say the least.
Mercedes, I'm sorry, we're such chauvinist pigs this evening. I apologize.
No worries. I love the fact that, I mean, there are women that do it. I had a chance to attend King of the Hammers a few times as media. And so, hats off to anybody that participates, a man or a woman or however you identify. God, the blood, sweat, tears, the amount of money, the amount of effort. I mean, Amber Turner, for instance, she's is this her 4th year? I think that she's been running her Suzuki Samurai, and every year she's been building it up and doing more with it and making it more capable. She bought that little Suzuki Samurai for $500. $500. And she literally has been building it up and making it her own. And she taught herself welding, and now she's becoming a master welder essentially. And I've been documenting her journey, and we've become fast friends, the three of us, and her family's wonderful. And it's great. I mean, and she's just one of many, many people, these racers and support teams and all the people that are there. I mean, it's the community, it's not just necessarily KOH, right? It's racers, it's the car culture. And that's why Andy and I have our fingers in so many different parts of the car community, whether it's, flying to Scotland for INEOS, or whether it's, low riders down in Chicago, or whether it's, street racing or this or that, or whatever it may be. It's all cars. It's just the community as a whole. It's infectious in such a great way, because people are so passionate and they would love to help each other get into it and to support each other.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like to dip my toe in different segments of the car culture, and it's super fun. And it's easy to get sort of burnt out on maybe one genre or one group,
right?
So it's fun to like mix it up.
Absolutely agree.
Yep. And we definitely do that. I mean, I think people just never know what Andy and I will do next, as far as the trips we go on, or the vehicle we might buy next, or those types of things. And we keep ourselves guessing though too. So,
there's a whole automotive world out there. And
yeah,
it's, I mean, like from since day one, we've always been like, we're all really cut from the same cloth, right? If you're into automotive, I don't care if you're into Porsches or if you're into Fiats or Chevys or whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, we're really all cut from the same cloth. It's just, we all like, you might like vanilla and she might like chocolate, but we both like ice cream.
Oh yeah. And it's fun to compare notes with like different tribes, because everybody's got their own problems in their tribe, right? Like
sure.
their own technical issues, their own wants and desires, the like holy grail car that they're after. And it's really fun to figure out like what gets people excited.
Totally agree.
Yep.
One more thing about King of the Hammers, the only other events that I can think of in the US that sort of come close to that is those crazy buggy hill climbs in like the Southeast, like down in Georgia and Tennessee, where they're basically going up like a 60-degree or even more radical hillside. Like they're basically going up a cliff face. Gnarly.
Yeah, rock bouncers. Yep.
Exactly. That's the only other thing that I can think of that comes close to it. And those guys are crazy too. All those mud.
Yes, absolutely. Those guys are all throttle all the time. The rock bouncer crowd. And
that's a good point, Andy. It's almost like throttle is the answer to every problem.
When in doubt, throttle out, right? So
yeah, exactly.
It's a good phrase.
So, Andy, you mentioned you work for Warren. We talked about that last time you guys were on the show. What was your role down there? Were you guys actually doing support stuff?
Yeah, we always go to King of the Hammers to support racers. That's our number one role while we're down there. So we support a lot of the racers. I believe it's upwards of 90% of the racers out there are using our product, which is fantastic. Every now and then there's a little bit of a snafu. We're there to help. We bring a whole trailer load of parts. So, if you have a problem with a gear or a rope or something like that, we're there to help. We do sell apparel down there, which we sold out of halfway through the event, which is a good problem to have. And then we're also, we have another company called Factor 55. Factor 55 sells rigging equipment, and they sell rigging equipment down there. So, but our number one reason to be there is to support racers. We are a sponsor of the event. We sponsored the VIP area as well, which is a great way to view the King of the Hammers with getting out of the elements a little bit. So, but we've been involved with the organization for many years.
Hey, Andy, by the way, this is a complete tangent, but I'm curious, of people that are buying winches and using winches, where do they fall in terms of using stranded wire rope versus the newer synthetic ropes?
Great question. It's synthetic versus wire is the number one question we get at most events. And it's definitely trending in the synthetic direction these days. 5 years ago, it would have probably been 50-50. but it's definitely a majority going to synthetic rope. So synthetic rope is lighter weight, easier to handle than wire rope. The number one issue is abrasion, so you've got to be very careful with it. I can pull out my pocket knife and cut synthetic rope. Steel rope is super durable and extremely resilient, and but it can bird's nest. It can develop barbs, or what we call fish hooks.
Yeah.
And so it's it's a great choice for utility. If you're skidding logs or running it through the across rocks or logs all the time in a utility application, steel rope is still a great choice. Like, there's a reason that wreckers and tow truck operators still use steel, because they're dragging it on the ground all the time. So for the recreationalist, I think synthetic is a great way to go. Regardless, you should always be wearing gloves. So,
and always maintain your rope too.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Inspect it, keep it clean, keep it dry.
Yep.
Yeah, all of that
100%.
stuff. Good deal. And people don't realize that no matter what your rope is made of, whether it's synthetic fiber or natural fiber, debris and contaminants will degrade the strength of the rope. So you have to wash it too.
Yeah,
Yes.
you should take it and, like those finger trap toys, dunk it in some water and you push it together. That'll help get some of that debris out there, because you're spot on that over time the debris will degrade that rope from the inside out.
Yeah, it's basically like sandpaper inside the rope.
You bet. Yeah. Exactly
You'd
right.
be surprised. I mean, even if you go on a trail ride and all of a sudden there's a lot of dust and you come back and you're like, oh, my car is clean, or, my 4x4 is clean, everything's great. And then all of a sudden you take your rope out and then you dunk it in, the bucket, and you're trying to clean it and you see all the debris that's coming out of that rope. When you do that, with your synthetic rope, you're like, oh, whoa. Yeah, you'd be surprised. It harbors a lot.
No, definitely. I mean, I've done a lot of four-wheeling, and it's interesting to have seen over the years the progression where people have transitioned to synthetic winch rope.
Yeah. It also stores less potential energy than wire rope does too. So there's a little bit of a different safety aspect there too. I mean, you got to treat both with respect, but it doesn't hold as much potential energy as steel does. Well,
listen, I'll tell you a story. During a winching operation, this was like 15 years ago, my friend somehow his rope got tangled or crossed, and it actually pulled the drum of his winch out of its mount on one side.
Wow.
It jacked the winch up completely. And he was running an 8274, right? Mm. One of Warren's, like, that is the granddaddy of all Warren winches, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So yeah, it really messed it up, but that wouldn't have happened with synthetic. The rope would have failed before the winch drum would have. But to your point, the safety factor on synthetic rope is it can't be underestimated. I mean, I don't have a lot of four-wheelers listening, but one of the safety considerations you have to realize with wire rope is that all of that tension, if it snaps, all of that tension is going to come out and whip that thing across whatever span it can reach. And if you're standing there, you're toast.
Yeah, we always tell people you should be standing farther away from the winch rope. So if you've got like 50 feet of line out, you need to be standing at a minimum of 51 feet away. So you don't want to be anywhere near. You see a lot of people, people don't think about it. You see a lot of videos on YouTube and people are standing right there. And it's like, in the unlikely event of a winch rope failure, you don't want to be anywhere where it can whip. But there are things you can do. You can add weight to the line and safety factors and techniques and whatnot that you can follow to minimize all of that stuff. And there's a big thirst for education on this stuff as more people get into the sort of the overlanding space. And, let's face it, there are plenty of four-wheel drives out there, Broncos, Wranglers, Defenders, and a host of other vehicles that are so capable out of the box. People are going farther in stock vehicles than ever. And, a lot of people know they need a lot of this recovery equipment and just don't know necessarily how to use it. Like I jokingly say, I don't care if it's a firearm or a frying pan, you need to know how to use it before you have to use it. Or else it's, you're just like, you're not sure what to do with it. So, And a winch is the same way.
Use it before you need it, or like learn how to use it before you need it.
Yeah, go pull your car around the driveway. Go listen to what the motor does on the winch. Read up on the techniques. It's not rocket science, but When you do get stuck, a lot of people tend to panic and try to go too fast, and that's when mistakes happen, and potential failures and safety aspects come into play.
Oh, trust me, I can tell you guys, I've put a 4x4 on its side twice in my lifetime.
Doesn't take much.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. And I mean, a lot of the times when Andy and I, when we do like these vehicle rallies and competitions and things, I mean, we'll ratchet things down, if we have a lot on the inside, and we'll make sure things on the outside are really tight and really secure. People might laugh at us and go, well, you don't need to put, ratchet your duffel down, your this and this and recovery gear. Oh, yes, you do. Because if you end up siding it or rolling it, I mean, those things, it doesn't matter if it's a bag of peanuts or if it's your recovery gear, bag or whatnot. I mean, they all are projectiles, and, it's safety first, no matter what you're doing or where you're going.
Yeah. The last thing you want is a duffel bag in the back of the head, or even just the simple weight transfer while the vehicle is transitioning from left to right camber and so forth. It's stuff that people don't think about. What drives me crazy is I see people loading their roof racks up so heavy, and they're raising the center of gravity so high.
Yes.
They're really hurting themselves on the trail.
Yeah. It's I've competed a couple of times in an off-road rally. It's a map and compass traditional navigation rally called the Rebel Rally. And it's all women. It's about 1,500 miles, mostly all off-road. And I've done it 3 times now as a competitor, but I also cover it as media when I do it. And I've seen more roof racks and platform racks sheared off because of roof racks being not even overextended as far as weight limits, but just, spare tires put on there and, big, huge tote containers and this on there. And it's just the constant repetition of, washboarded trails and off-camber stuff and higher speeds and dune driving and the shift of weight and transfer of this and that and everything. And I mean, keep your weight secured and keep it inside as best as possible if you can.
Minimize those roof loads.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was guilty of that early on, too, when I got a roof rack, because I was excited to have space inside of the vehicle freed up,
Right.
And so, I put jerry cans on the roof. This is something I don't do anymore. I did run a rooftop tent for a while, but it's like a drag chute when you're on the highway trying to get to the trail, right? So, like, you're getting 6 miles a gallon, maybe 8 miles a gallon with a rooftop tent on the top of a 4x4. So I don't really do that anymore either. I'm fine with a ground tent. It's all good.
It's a trade-off. It depends on if you want to be up and off the ground, but if you want to trade off your fuel economy for it. So it's, you have to decide with all the new pieces of equipment and all the upgrades, what's really important to you. But, kind of goes back to our conversation of, know how to use it, know the pros and cons, and figure out what's important to you and educate yourself before you buy. And then B, A, before you buy, and B, before you use it, so that you really are safe while you're doing it. And, you can keep those around safe with you.
Yeah. And, last time you guys were on the show, we talked about packing smart, utilizing the least amount of equipment possible, and also making that equipment as lightweight as possible. And that's really important. And that only comes from experience for the most part. I mean, you can read online, you can read, overlanding forums and stuff and take those recommendations. But until you actually have a bunch of trips under your belt, you don't really know what you need and what you don't. And what you're comfortable leaving home is really what I'm getting at.
Yeah. We were just talking about this not that long ago. Like the first time we went out, we had so much stuff we couldn't see out the back window, and we had 2 of these big
huge Rome
totes,
boxes,
and it was just like, man, we don't need half the stuff. Every time we go out, we generally pare back. Like, well, we don't need why do we have 2 spatulas? So we'll do 1 spatula. Or
in our defense, we just were starting out, and we had a 1995 Suzuki Sidekick, right? A little tiny 2-door. And so that in and of itself was pretty small. And so we had 2 Rome Adventure Company tote boxes, right? So we were trying to prep. This was before the ALCAN 5000 rally that we did in 2020 with our Mitsubishi Pajero, but that was our very first foray into 4x4 off-roading and this and this. And we're like, okay, let's try this and let's do this. And this is, 4x4, adventuring. And we were just like way overloaded. And I mean, but we still are learning as to, do we need this? And if we haven't used it in 5-10 times, nope, get rid of it. But we're still evolving. And I still think that everybody evolves every single solitary trip. Don't ever get sedentary as far as your bit of kit that you have. Constantly check it out, constantly update it, review it, use it, and lose it. It just, that's just kind of how it works.
If you don't use it, lose it.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons I wanted to talk to Andy about King of the Hammers and winching and all of that, the recovery aspect of four-wheeling, is because Mercedes, you just got back from Scotland, a trip to preview the new production model of the INEOS Grenadier. And I know you've, like we said before, you had driven the prototypes, but let's talk about the Scotland trip. Give us a rundown on, first of all, where in Scotland, what was the weather like, who was there, all that stuff.
So INEOS Grenadier, so they have several different iterations of prototypes. So let me back up just a little tiny bit. The prototypes that I was able to drive last year was in France, and those were the 2B prototypes. So the INEOS Grenadier had a progression of several different prototypes, starting with the 1B, then 2B prototypes, then a series of production tryout prototypes, or PTOs as they called them. So the PTO 1, 2, and finally the PTO 3 prototype iteration, which was the last prototype tryout right before production models actually began, which is what basically brought me back overseas, which was to Scotland. So when I went over to France last year, which was right around this time, I drove the diesel and petrol version of the 2B prototypes. And that was just strictly off-road because, mind you, they weren't street legal. They were just off-road. But it was really interesting because I had a chance to get a feel for where they were headed, where the brand new manufacturer, brand new vehicle, what their intent was, what they saw this vehicle as, and basically tour the factory too, which they then shared and still do share with Mercedes-Benz with their smart cars, with their EV smart cars. Fast forward to today, actually to just a few weeks ago, I came back from Scotland, and I was part of the first international wave to fly into the top tip of Scotland, to Inverness, Scotland, and do an off-road and on-road trip, mainly off-road, to go all the way from Inverness, Scotland, the tippy north, all the way down to essentially Glasgow, Scotland, and then fly out from Glasgow back down to London, then back home to Oregon, where I live.
Very cool. By the way, did you meet Sir Jim Ratcliffe?
I did not yet anyways, hopefully someday.
I was just curious. So he's the billionaire guy behind INEOS, right? And
he is, yes.
So I read your article. I'll just tell the listeners, he was a big Land Rover Defender fan. And when Land Rover killed the original Defender a couple of years ago, the ladder frame, coil sprung, body on frame Land Rover, he was like, well, I see a market opportunity here.
Essentially, yes. I mean, he was a big fan of the original Defender. And when Land Rover decided to go the way of a unibody architecture and more technology, more luxury, and more accoutrements to satisfy that type of market, he saw an opening in the marketplace for a more utilitarian workhorse 4x4 as to what he's loved and what he was hoping that Land Rover was going to continue with. So he basically said, well, if I can't buy the rights to, or if I can't, be able to take over that, well, I'm going to make my own iteration from it, and basically started building one from the ground up, which is what you see now with the new production ready INEOS Grenadier.
It's good to be a billionaire, isn't it?
Must be
Yeah,
nice.
I know. I was gonna say, I'm like, I need like maybe 5 or 6 zeros at the end of my dollar count right now in my savings account, but it would be in some respects, yes.
All right, so I've never been to Scotland. It's windblown, it's blustery, it's cold this time of year, of course. And what kind of conditions did you guys encounter on the trails there?
Well, I figured it was going to be similar to Portland, Oregon, where we live, where Andy and I live. What I wasn't expecting is that the temperatures were going to plummet right before we got there, and it was going to snow a lot right before we got there. So, from what I understand, our wave got the most interesting and dynamic off-road opportunities that we drove. So, it was below freezing at points. It got pretty icy. Off-road, I think they had to shake things up a little bit and change our route. Because some of the areas were a little bit too treacherous for us to be able to drive successfully off-road and be safe. There was some deep water wading areas, and I think it was the largest freshwater lake or freshwater area in the UK that some of the other waves were able to wade through with the vehicles that we weren't able to do with our specific wave because it was too thick for ice, which is kind of a shame. I was hoping to be able to do that. I saw some of the other footage and photographs, which were pretty cool. But hey, you know what? We made do, and it was pretty cool to see what the Grenadier was able to do as far as its capability on ice, mud covered trails, and, being able to off-road in Scotland opened up my eyes in a different capacity than what we are able to do here in Portland, Oregon. And Andy and I, especially Andy, has driven a lot in the Pacific Northwest, especially in Oregon, like Tillamook and everything. I mean, you could talk about
Going
that.
again on Sunday. Yeah.
I know. I was going to say he's going again in Sunday, and he can talk about, since I think Scotland's a little bit higher as far as the latitude, you could talk about our terrain here is comparable as far as the wind swept-ness, as far as the dark clouds, the rain, the saturation, the moss was just incredible. And it's very similar.
Damp. Yeah.
It's very damp. It was harsh climate, and that's what we're used to. Andy and I are originally from the Midwest. I'm actually dual citizen, German American, but 16 years here, we're used to off-roading in the Pacific Northwest. And so the climate was colder than I was anticipating, but especially for Andy being the primary driver when we go out off-roading, it was natural because it's like, bring your Gore-Tex, bring your Arctic down jacket, we're ready to go.
Well, what I'm picturing in Scotland is slippery cobble and shale and mud.
Oh, yeah.
And
yes.
Probably some drop-offs on either side of the vehicle at one point. And also, I'm told, I have it on good authority, that you should stay off the moors at night because of the werewolves, but I'm not sure if you encountered
Well, I can tell you the Scottish stags, the crazy deer that have like horn, or like, horns.
Rack. Yeah, the big antlers.
Are like, 10 feet tall because they're crazy huge. And I mean, they are like, they're monsters. I had like a standoff with one of them. And I'm like, you know what, if I'm going to be like the sole U.S. journalist, let alone a woman, and like be like the Grenadier that gets gored by one on a trail. Yeah. In the Scottish Highlands, I will never live that down. So yeah, I don't know about the werewolves, but yeah.
Wait. We've got to back up. You just told me that you had a standoff with a stag, and then you just you just moved on.
You have to check out one of my reels. I did a lot of reels on Crankshaft Culture on Instagram, and also my personal, same with my name.
She stayed in the vehicle. Let's put it that way. It wasn't like something like bad tourists of Yellowstone.
Oh no. We were very respectful. It was a pack of us. Well, a pack of us. It was probably 10 or 12 different Grenadiers, but it was probably 40 or 50 stag that were, and we were at the tail end of the pack of Grenadiers, and we were just doing the flatlands of, and it was all snowy, of the Scottish Highlands, and we were towards the back, and they just, they came down and they were just settled on the trail, And we kind of waited and waited and waited, and then they kind of parted ways a little bit. And so the others kind of moved forward, and then it came up to me, and I was driving, and I think I had the diesel trial master at the time. It was the first day that I was driving. So I was driving, and Jerry, the Canadian journalist, was next to me in passenger seat. And then, of course, there was one that decided to get a little stubborn and crawled back up to the top and just faced me off. And it was, watching me and just right there, right next to the road.
Get out of the way.
Yeah, get out of the way. And he was just kind of there. And it was about maybe 20 feet ahead of me. And I waited. And long story very short, there's a little toot button that's
they have a horn like a normal car, but then they have this this pedestrian horn that's like get out of the way kind of thing. It's just like a kick kind of thing.
It's a little red button. It's a toot button.
It says toot on it.
It says toot on it.
Yeah,
It's like a beep beep. You could just push it and you could just make whatever noises you want on it. It's like a beep beep kind of thing.
So it's like a non-aggressive, hey, I'm not mad at you, I just don't want to hit you.
Yeah,
yes.
It's like a little delightful, if you lay on it, I didn't lay on it. I mean, I'm sure if you pushed it and held it, it probably would go, but I mean, I didn't, because of course animals and, it's also, again, could gore me. And, of course, I didn't want that. But anyways, so long story short, I radioed to the gentlemen that were leading the group, and I said, well, just stuck back here a little bit. They said, just use the toot button. You sure? Yeah, just give it a little toot, just see what happens. Okay. And beep, beep, ears go back. And then toot, it started prancing a little bit, looked back at me and stopped. And I thought, oh, well, this is going to be the Hail Mary moment, or we're going to be good to go. And then it decided to go downhill and we were good to go.
You know what would have been more epic is if he decided to ram you and put a couple holes in the fender. And then, yeah.
Would have been a story.
No, because leave it to me. Leave it to be. Yeah, no. Let's just say no.
Well, okay. So beyond the stags and the werewolves and the cold and the rain, what were your impressions of the vehicle like in terms of, maybe we should start with drivetrain and layout. So it's a BMW inline six, a venerable engine. It's like bulletproof, right? Everybody uses it.
Right.
And it's got a ZF gearbox, I think 8-speed automatic, and it's got 3 locking differentials.
Yes.
So it's a pretty bulletproof setup, very reliable. Nothing, it's all off the shelf.
Right. Yeah. So depending on what model, so there's 3 different trim levels essentially that you could get. So there's the base Grenadier level, then there's the Field Master, which essentially is kind of their adventure ready. You can go pretty much anywhere type of vehicle. And then there's the more rugged off-road anywhere, more extreme level, which is the Trial Master. And so and they have a very extensive layout as to which are the optional bits of kit that you can get. Again, the differentials are part of it, the tires, the wheels, the winch, winches, I should say. They have an option for the winch front and also a rear if you wanted to have a rear that's removable or not. All sorts of different parts and pieces for upgrades with it. But depending on which one you have, the Grenadier overall, there were 2 different kinds that we had. So, of course, there was the Field Master and the Trial Master that we had. They ended up outfitting both of them with the BFG KO2 all-terrain tires just because of the fact of the nature of the off-road terrain that we were on. They wanted to make sure that the duelers, they felt they wouldn't be good enough. Yeah, the Bridgestone duelers wouldn't be handling the terrain good enough. So they swapped out what would be standard on, I think, the Field Master. They upgraded those.
Not an aggressive enough tread is what you mean.
For this launch. So yeah, exactly. So not an aggressive enough tread for what we had for the launch. So they swapped those out so that the Field Master and Trial Masters were on the KO2s from BFG for the whole entire thing. So all of
you guys, I love KO2s. They're fantastic tires. I'm on my second set of those tires, and they're just fantastic. I love them.
Yep. We've got them too. We've got Cam 3s and we've got KO2s as well.
Cam 2 on 2 vehicles, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, Yeah, you're going to spend a little bit more.
Yes, you'll spend a little bit more, but they're great
Acronyms.
tires.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that, BFG obviously knows a thing or two of their tires. And I mean, the second that I saw that in the specs, I knew right away, I knew the capability of their tires. And so I knew I was in good hands. And I was glad to see that they had that back in France as part of the prototype. And they had the Bridgestone Duelers as the tire of choice for the prototypes. So they had those 2 tires already chosen, saying that they were going to run those through to production, and they kept those 2. So my Tread magazine article that I have that's online, that went online a couple of weeks ago, that talks about all the comparisons of the prototypes to production models, what stayed, what changed, and what kind of upgraded since then. And those tires actually stayed, which is interesting because I was very curious as to what would be the difference, what would be the differences with it. And for me, the tires make all the difference in the world, and the capability was just great with them.
I think if you're in America and you want a good off-road tire, a good mud terrain that performs well in pretty much any condition, including highway, and it's not super loud and it doesn't wander, you got 2 choices. You got BFGs or Michelin. And the Michelins are very expensive compared to the BFG. I think they wear like iron. The sidewall on the Michelins is like super armored. So that's a really good advantage on the Michelin. But the BFGs overall, for the money, that's the tire to have. Andy, what do you think? Do you agree with me?
I can't speak to any Michelin off-road tires. I'm not familiar with any Michelin off-road tires. BF Goodrich is actually owned by Michelin. But I really, really like the KM3s for a mud terrain. I have those in a 33-inch tire on one rig that I have. And then I have the KO2s on 2 vehicles that we have. So I really like the KO2s for an all-terrain tire. They're 3-peak snow rated, so they're great in the snow. They're just a great tire. I have 0 complaints with our BF Goodrich. Absolutely love them. I got no qualms about our KO2s or KM3s.
It's so funny that you mentioned that BFG is now owned by Michelin, which is, yeah, that's true. What galls me is that you can't get certain Michelin mud terrain tires in the US without ordering them special, and they cost a fortune. That was kind of my point about Michelin's being more expensive and really too expensive. You might as well just go with the BFGs.
They are, yeah. I know Michelin tires in general you will pay a premium for them. My uncle always buys Michelins for his van, but yeah, we've run a number of different brands, and we just keep coming back to BF Goodrich with in terms of performance and reliability. Like, knock on wood, we've had very, very few problems with flat tires with the Michelin with the BF Goodriches, and I don't know, it's just a good all around tire.
By the way, I run Michelin's on my BMW 5 Series, and I've tried so many different tires. We don't have to get into a whole tire symposium here, but I've run Continentals, Yokohamas, Bridgestone, and Michelin's, and the Michelin's are just the all-around star performer.
Nice. Yeah, I've never owned straight up Michelin's. On-road stuff, we've also owned Continental. We've had Yokohamas, Falcon, and BF Goodrich. And
by the way, Andy, what about Kumho? Do you like Kumho tires?
I ran Kumho's on I think they were the KL71 mud terrains on my Suzuki, and they were a really good tire. The only, and I don't know if you want to call it a problem, the only thing I didn't like about them is they were directional. So when you went to rotate them, you could only go front to back. There was no 5-tire rotation or anything like that. So it was just a directional thing. And then we actually owned the only other set of directional mud terrain tires too, which were the Yokohama mud terrains. They're old style mud terrains on our Jeep Cherokee, which, like I said, were also directional. I really like those tires too. So
I think that is increasingly common now for some reason. I'm not sure why, but I see that more and more.
Yeah, we also ran Nokian. We had Nokian Hakkapeliitas for snow tires. Those were incredible snow tires. Those were the tires that really made me a true believer in an actual snow tire. growing up in the Midwest, I never ran snow tires, and I bought a set of wheels that happened to come with a brand new set of Nokian snow tires. And I was like, whatever, I'll just run them. And I
They were
remember being out in the
amazing.
snow and like, this turned my little lowered Honda into a snowmobile. It was amazing.
Wait,
So
those are Finnish, right?
yes, yeah, they're from Finland. Yeah,
Yeah, I've never run them because I've never had like a Subaru or something, but I know that they're pretty popular.
yeah.
Well, we had them on our Lord 1998 Honda Civic EX that I owned that had some stuff done to it. So, and it made it run like a snowmobile,
Yeah.
especially when we got stuck in a snowstorm out here in Oregon.
All right, so you're in Scotland. You've had your encounter with the stag and all is well, but I'm curious of your impressions of how the Grenadier performed. So tell us about that.
I think INEOS played it smart by partnering with established companies, whether it's Magna, BMW, Bilstein, Eibach, Red Winches, different companies that are already established to be able to bring the INEOS Grenadier to market in a light that was already proven in multiple different respects. For me, getting behind the wheel, given the keys to say, all right, here you go, on-road, off-road, you've got 2 days, let's make it work, was a challenge. I'm used to driving right-hand drive vehicles. We have 3 of them sitting at home. I'm kind of an odd anomaly. I realize that. I'm living in Portland, Oregon. But we have very wide highways here. We've got very wide country roads. I'm not used to driving them. I'm used to driving them once I get off-road. I'm used to driving them, on trails, which is completely different. So I come at it from an odd side of things, whereas a lot of journalists are like, oh, I'm not used to doing right-hand drive at all. So I come from it pragmatically from a different viewpoint than a lot of other people. I had the chance to really drive it off-road first. We had the Field Master the first day, the diesel Field Master, and then we had the Trial Master petrol the second day. So they made sure that we had both different derivatives, especially with the U.S. and North America. We are not getting the diesel right away.
And by the way, it's the same engine. It's a BMW straight 6, but it's diesel or petrol. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's coded differently. But I was secretly telling them, yes, bring the diesel, because, we've got 3 diesels sitting in our driveway and I'm partial to diesel. But
well, and also off-road, it's nice to drive a diesel off-road. You've got that low-end grunt that you don't necessarily have with a petrol engine. They're just a lot more comfortable off-road. And by the way, the BMW diesels are super quiet, so it's not like it's an intrusion into the cabin when you're driving one of those.
Right. It's not like an old Cummins or something like that. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
your teeth aren't rattling in your head.
You're right. Exactly. And I mean, and the torque's right there. I mean, they're nice. They're grunty. They're low. They've got the power is down low and it's right there when you need it. What I appreciate on the petrol version of it is they made it nicely. It felt very similar to the diesel. So when you had it in 4 low, you had it in 4 high. I didn't feel like there was a lack of power when I needed it off road. I felt like the petrol was very well matched to what I needed it to be, which was great. Which I was wondering, okay, so is there not going to be enough torque? Because I know obviously diesel is just, you have it where you need it, and it's just usually a very,
Yeah, but that BMW with the turbo, it's a straight 6 turbo. I mean, it's no lack of power. It's 270 some horsepower, 200. I don't remember what the power is.
Right. We'd have to look at the statistics, but
it's interesting you say that because my off-road experience, I always try to be in low range whenever possible. Yep. Unless we're like out in the desert and we've got a lot of ground to cover, I'll go to high range for. But low range, you just have so much more control with the engine braking and the gearing,
Yes,
absolutely. Especially on a vehicle like a lower powered vehicle. When I did the Overland Adventure this summer with 4-wheeler, I took my Mitsubishi Pajero and it doesn't have a lot of power, but so I would basically, when we would leave the pavement and go into the sand, I'd immediately just put it into 4 low, just because I've got way more usable power in that respect. So, but But something like a Grenadier that's got good power, you might be able to get away with four longer than I would.
For me, it was the matter of getting used to how to set things up. They have what is called the off-road mode that you needed to set up and figure out how to engage the differentials if you wanted to engage them, how to engage the off-road mode, how to set up the buttons and the this and this, the whatever. Once you got used to that, which didn't take a lot, but once you got used to that, it was pretty intuitive. And it really just ran the show. It was really intuitive. It was great. It felt very natural. It felt very relaxed. It felt like it just ran the show and you're right there and you just didn't feel like you had to force it. It didn't feel like you were fighting it. It just was where it needed to be. Which was great.
It did what you expected it to do. It was predictable.
Exactly. Yes, it was predictable. The only thing that I would say is when you wanted to disengage the differentials, when you wanted to go open again, when you wanted to unlock it and go back and just go back down, it was a little bit of a trick to try to disengage and get it to go. I think that they've got a little bit of work ahead for it to disengage. And I think that they realize that. So hopefully they can kind of fine tune that once it actually goes out to production, or at least once it hits the US shores or North American shores, to get it fine tuned. So we have to kind of go back and forth a little bit and then just kind of, maybe go and turn up and turn back and then just kind of turn around and just kind of,
disengage.
Disengage it so that it was, not so fussy. But that was my only criticism about that.
Sometimes you have to cover a little bit of ground to get everything to engage or disengage, as it were.
Yeah, engaging wasn't the issue, it was disengaging, but it seemed to be a lot longer than what I'd like it to be. It just seemed to be a lot longer than what I'd prefer, and it seemed to be other people was having the same issue.
Gotcha.
So, but I mean, again, first-time auto manufacturer, first-time vehicle from a first-time auto manufacturer, so we can't be too terribly picky, but I think with those types of things that they're realizing, okay, we need to work on this, we need to work on that, we need to work on X, Y, Z. But yeah.
All right. So is the INEOS Grenadier a thumbs up, a thumbs down? How do you feel?
Yeah, I'd say if somebody is looking for a workhorse utilitarian 4x4 that they are looking to upgrade to make their own or keep it in stock form and really have a fully capable vehicle that they are wanting to have as just a runabout, on-road, off-road, both, all of it and the above, I would say 2 thumbs up. I think that they have a couple quirks they need to work out. That's going to be everything. I don't see any vehicles being perfect. I'm going to have more details coming out soon. I'm going to have another tread article coming out. I'll have a couple of other articles coming out as well. Yeah, I mean, all in all, from a first-time OE manufacturer, first-time vehicle from a first-time manufacturer, I'm pretty impressed. I think that Sir Jim Ratcliffe and the team that he has assembled has done a mighty good job to basically create a vehicle that he envisioned to be mechanical wherever possible and technological wherever absolutely necessary, and to basically have the next generation of the Land Rover, not Land Rover, but have the next generation of a workhorse move on and have future generations of it continue. And this will be in the form of a truck, which is already being tested. And it should be in Sweden as of, I think, probably right now being tested. A longer wheelbase Grenadier that is still kind of to be determined among an EV, also hydrogen-based power plant. Grenadier and some other things coming out of the pipeline. So they're aggressively working on other derivatives.
Okay, so you guys are getting ready for ALCAN 2024. It's a long run up to the rally. What are you guys doing right now? What's your preparation? What's your vehicle? What's going on?
Yeah. So it's funny because we're almost, gosh, I should look at the calendar. We may be like a year out this weekend. I should look, but
I'll check.
So we signed up to do 2024 at the end of 2022. So I think we've already got a car number. I think we're car 16. We don't know yet which car we're going to take yet. So we're definitely going to do it. But we haven't. So it starts February 21st, 2024. So we're almost a year out. But we haven't decided on a car yet. But we're going to definitely take the experiences that we had in 2020 and 2022 and take that into consideration. Like 2020, we took our own JDM turbo diesel Mitsubishi. It was very sturdy and very comfortable, but very slow. Our Subaru Outback Wilderness for 2022 was really kind of the perfect vehicle. It had ground clearance, power, and comfort. And those are the things you need I think you need as a core ALCAN vehicle. It makes the days shorter. It allows you to get past slow moving semi trucks on those on those rural roads. And so we'll probably take something that ticks those boxes.
We're just not sure yet what.
Yeah, we just don't know yet what. I mean, it could be our own vehicle. Maybe we'll partner with an OE again.
Yeah, we're just not sure.
Not sure yet.
With us, you never know.
Well, I mean, what's your dream vehicle if money was no object?
That's to be determined. Oh my
vehicle.
God. It depends on what we've eaten for the day, if we've had caffeine or not.
Well, okay. No, I want to think about this now.
Oh gosh.
If I could take any vehicle on the ALCAN.
Oh golly. It's a winter.
Yeah, it would have to be something with all those things, but
oh goodness.
Oh gosh.
How much time do you have?
I mean, how about an INEOS Grenadier turbo diesel?
We love that.
That would be an awesome choice.
So diesel's not allowed in the United States, though, so maybe a petrol version.
But, a Grenadier would be a great choice. So.
Yes. I'd say yes. That'd be good.
Now, would you do an EV on the ALCAN?
I would.
No. If she would, but she wouldn't make it very far.
No,
so
okay. So I would on the caveat, if there was the mobile infrastructure to follow us. And get this, I know that I'd be like burning the carbon crazy, and people would be like, you're burning too much, but they would be mad as hell because sorry.
It would defeat the purpose.
It would defeat the purpose, but it would be on the example of you could. It would be on the example of the fact that you could, if the infrastructure was there, you could actually make it work. That if there's, that opportunity, I would, but Andy
the short answer is no. So
Andy and I differ on that right now. Yet. We differ on that right now.
Maybe someday, but like right now, there's nowhere to charge your vehicle in most of these places. So
if it's mobile, well,
yeah, if you have a semi truck following you around on ice roads, then sure. But that's not going to happen.
I know. I was kind of asking just to tease you guys a little bit because we know EVs aren't there yet, right? But a gas electric hybrid would do great.
You could do that for sure.
But
no, there's no but.
Just hang on. There are things that I'm working on, and there are competitions that I've done in the middle of the desert that have been 1,500 miles in the middle of absolute nowhere anywhere near charging stations, and we've been successful.
Yes, and that is way different than doing a point A to point B rally that is 5,000 miles in temperatures that are 40 below zero that affect battery performance.
But there is also a Nissan Ariya that is not us. People have actually sent us the link to the articles and said, are you the people that are doing the Nissan Ariya that's doing the pole to pole, North Pole to South Pole expedition? Because there's a team that's doing it. I don't know if they're husband and wife, it's a man and woman or who they are, but they wanted to know if it's us, that there's a Nissan Ariya all EV that's an all-wheel drive that's doing it. So it's being done.
We don't know the infrastructure. We don't know the logistics behind it. I don't know what it is, but I'm telling you that no, I would not do the ALCAN 5000 in an EV at this point.
I would try it.
Yeah. We're going to be on separate teams that year. So I'll wave at her as I drive by in my INEOS Grenadier with a gasoline engine.
We decided.
I love it. Have you guys thought about maybe building something for ALCAN 2024?
All the time.
Oh yeah, we talk about it. I mean, we did in 2020, and I started early, and I completely like rebuilt the entire suspension system and down to the bearings and everything like that, and a lot of other things. And it's a lot of prep. It was so gratifying to cross that finish line, though, in this vehicle that I put all this work into. We had zero mechanical issues, and it was like, yes, my hard work paid off, but it is a lot of work.
But think of all the hellish like stories and all the, the long nights and all the not fun stuff.
It made it worth it.
Okay,
I will say,
months to leading
when
up
we
to that.
when Subaru supplied us this fantastic Outback Wilderness, we put on a light bar and a roof rack, and that was pretty much it. And it was like, wow, we're done. This is great. So, and it was a fantastic choice. So there was something to be said about not having to, prep this thing for months on end. A lot of people do. They'll buy a car specifically for ALCAN, and a lot of people will just take what they have and throw a set of winter tires and a roof rack, an extra gas can, and go. So,
well, and some people will even buy it, build it, and then sell it up there because Alaskans will need it up there.
Yeah.
Alaskans love rust-free cars from the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, which I never even really knew until we rallied the competition in 2020. And we're like, how are you getting home? Oh, we're flying home. What are you doing with your car? Oh, we sold it. What? So cracked windshield and all? Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, because it's Alaska. I mean...
Yeah, right.
I don't think you can even register a car without a cracked windshield in Alaska.
Right. Again, it's about learning about all of this stuff. I mean, so for us, it's just been fascinating. Every step of it has been fascinating.
I think you guys should find a very well-kept AMC Eagle wagon and drop an LS in it and a Tremec 5-speed.
Oh, God. I
sort of love this.
And mate that to the AMC transfer case and go.
I kind of like this idea.
Oh, God.
Or maybe an old Grand Wagoneer with the wood on the side.
Oh, God.
It'd be so cool.
What I'm getting at is it would be cool if you guys did something vintage, but not too vintage. It would have to be like in that sweet spot between 1970 and 1985.
Well, we did 91. That's vintage enough for me right now.
Yeah, I know you do need some comforts, right? And it's nice to have airbags and 3-point harness, seatbelts.
We were just happy with our Shieldman seats, which were super comfortable and heated. So
our Shieldman seats saved our backs.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm excited to see what you guys have in store. Let's talk about Crankshaft Culture really quick. I want to point people to that, and that's a venture between the two of you. And yeah, let's talk about that a minute.
Yeah, so we started Crankshaft Culture in 2016 as sort of our tagline was every vehicle's an adventure. Like, you can do cool stuff in any kind of vehicle. You don't have to have a Jeep on 42s. You don't have to have a hot rod. Like, you can do cool things in all kinds of vehicles. And the other theme is that we're united by horsepower. Like, you might like supercharged Chevys, and this guy might like turbocharged Toyotas, lifted Fords, slammed Nissans, whatever. But at the end of the day, we're all united by horsepower. Like, we all are in it for the same thing, just different kinds. So we have crankshaftculture.com, which is our blog site. We have Instagram and Facebook at Crankshaft Culture. We have Twitter at Crankshaft Cult. And we've got a great group on Facebook. Got a little over 1,000 people just in the group.
Very active group.
And we just talk cars, all kinds of cars, on-road, off-road, lifted, lowered, boosted, diesel, like whatever, memes, projects, just
Fun
it's a
group.
little bit of everything. It's car culture.
We accept everybody.
Yeah, it's car culture, and it doesn't matter what it is. It's eclectic.
Andy and Mercedes Lilienthal, you make a great team. It's always fun to talk to you.
Well, thank you so much for having us on, Maurice.
Thanks for having us.
That's all for this episode of Horsepower Heritage. If you like what you've heard, go to buymeacoffee.com/HP Heritage and support the show, tell your friends, write a review, because all of that helps me reach more gearheads like you. I'll see you back here on Wednesday, May 17th for more muscle car talk with the kings of custom. It's the Ring Brothers. So until then, I'm Maurice Merrick. Thanks for listening.